Ladies and gentlemen, here we see wild black man in natural habitat, listening hard bass. Oh no, Sharpwind, what happened to your accent? Nothing happened, it's what people sound like here. I'm triggered. I'm triggered. Anytime I hear somebody speak English here, it always sounds like this, and it's disgusting. What? Oh, that's what we're doing. Hold on. 1 sec. Script. Wait, tutorial. The Sumerian shade. No, that was scrapped off. A collection of maple spore. Ah, okay. Modelbench. What's up, guys? Sharp here. Okay, we got off at the wrong foot, but I'm supposed to tell you about the new Modelbench update. AKA, I'm gonna make a tutorial on the update. A lot of you guys were confused, but it's essentially the same software as it was before. Things just got thrown around a little bit. So hey, why don't you smash the like button, maybe hit the bell, and we can get on with the video. Now, I was thinking, to begin with, I should probably just make a rig of Steve, or a normal Minecraft character. So if you open up model properties, in here you should probably add the model name. Steve Boyo. For now, you can close this and go to elements, and this is where all of your stuff is going to be. Up here, you have two icons, add part, add block. Now, let's add a part. All body parts need to be renamed, so let's call it body. Damn, microphone's in the way again. But this is just the body part. Body parts is what you're going to be animating inside the software, and shapes are what you can physically see being there. So this is a body part, but it doesn't have a shape yet. If you import this model into Mine-imator, you're just gonna get the position and rotation gizmos, but it's gonna be nothing. It's like looking at a folder, basically. So let's add a shape to this body. You don't have to rename the shapes, that's fine. However, I do want to get some textures in here, and I'm not gonna find the default Steve. Let's give him a random skin then. Ozai from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So select the body part, go under the material, and in here you can select which texture your model is gonna use. For some reason it doesn't have any eyes. What the hell? Hey, you alright, buddy? We want to define the shape now, so click on the new shape, and this icon up here is the UV editor. You can also press Ctrl+E to access that, and since we said that's our body, let's make this into an actual body. You can move this around with this pivot, you can resize it down all ways you possibly could. That's it, right? Ctrl+E again. And this is your body part. Now, the actual body, if you click the move tool, the actual body's got the pivot point from the center here. And this is the shape's pivot point. They're in the same place. You could offset the pivot. Okay, let's turn on the snapping, put it up to 1, so we can only move 1 by 1 here. So currently, the pivot offset is here. Let me tell you something. Let's clear stuff up from the previous Modelbench tutorial as well. Body parts can be bent. So let's make it bendable on the x-axis. You can preview the bend by clicking this show options and then messing with this setting here. This is what you're gonna do. Bend the upper part. The offset is going to be 6 because that's half the body. This is what your bend's gonna look like. Yeah, cool. If your shape has a pivot offset of somewhere down here, the bend's gonna start way up. Let's put this back to 0. And if you do the same thing, but with motion, you get absolutely the same results. You wanna know why? Because this doesn't matter. What matters is the pivot offset of the body. This is where the body part's pivot offset is. This is where the bend is gonna happen from. This is what you need to be careful about. You can move the body around and not mess anything up because that's the pivot offset also moving. So for now, let's make this functionable. Put this put this back to 0. So position, rotation, scale, we all know how that works. So bend, we've got the bend. We already said the offset. Let's give it a custom bend size and say, oh no, the more I do it, the more it just turns like gelatin style. Wow. Let's put it to 8 or something so it still looks fleshy, like there's actual flesh in there. You probably don't want your body to go beyond this point though, because this already looks quite compressed, and that's 130 degrees. So let's tweak this range setting up here. Let's put this 180 to 130. And put this to -130. What's gonna happen now is your body will not be able to go beyond 130. You've limited that value. Also, one thing, if you want to put this back to 0, you can right click, go to reset value, it's gonna reset. Now the same thing is for bend on y-axis. I mean, the bend looks fine. I guess we could increase the bend size to about 10 so it looks more smooth, or actually like, let's go for 11 so it's twisted all the way up. You probably don't want your body to go beyond 90 degrees because this already looks unhealthy. So let's go for 90 minus minus 90. So now it can only go so far. You do that so your character doesn't dislocate all the joints in his body. Of course, bend on the Z. Let's go for 75. Don't push yourself, boy. It's okay. You're not a circus freak. No offense to anybody in the circus. That was a joke. Thank you very much. We don't need to talk about position, rotation, scale. We know what that does. We've covered bend. Let's go to material. In here, you can pretty much define the texture. You can make it inherit parent's color, which is also a setting in Mine-imator. So if you take this off, it's going to affect the settings in Mine-imator. You can change the blend color, mix color. So let's say the blend color is going to be greenish. That is how the model is going to look like when you export it. So if you want to do some color tweaking, you can do it on the model already. Mix amount. That for some reason doesn't work. I mean, it works here. When you export it, it kind of doesn't work. I've tried it before, so I recommend you stay with the blend color. You can get the same results that way. Opacity, of course, that I think should work. And of course, brightness. The same settings in Mine-imator you all know you can tweak here. Now, there's a Mine-imator tab. You can change the render depth. For an example, if you want to make a face rig, you can do it from here. However, I've tried making a face rig in Modelbench, and you can only assign render depth to body parts, not individual shapes. So in the end, you kind of end up with even more assets than the regular rig. I mean, it is doable, but it's just too much of a pain for me to actually finish it. And also open the position tab. If you take this on, this body part in particular, when you select it in Mine-imator, will have the position already opened up. The shape also has a bunch of properties. We covered position, pivot offset, rotation, size, scale, material. As the same. Now I have appearance and wind. Appearance has a bunch of interesting properties. You can inflate the object. Yes, you can inflate it. It pretty much adds the value of 1 from the corners, going outwards from all the corners. It's like scaling it, but if you scale it, let's make this into 1. If you scale it, it's gonna scale from the pivot point, from down there, and if you inflate it, it's always going to scale from the center of the shape because it's inflating the corners. Now we also have bend. If you take this off, then even if you bend the body, this will not bend. Basically, you can disable the bend. If you want an entire body part to bend, but one shape needs to remain the same, you can just take off bend here and it's not going to be affected by it. You can mirror texture for some reason, I guess. You can invert this just like in Mine-imator, so you can only see the inside faces. You can make it face camera, so now it's always going to face the camera regardless of where I'm looking. Or, one of my personal favorites, you can make it hover. That's cool, because it's a 3D object. You can see all its dimensions, you can see the volume, but it's hovering like an item. Imagine all the rigs you can do with this. Like last time, in the last video, I said imagine having a magical wizard or whatever. He's got 2 talismans here. You can model the talismans and make the talismans hover above his head without needing to animate them because they always hover naturally. That is cool. I like it. I don't know why. It's so simple, yet so cool. Also I have wind axes. We can have it affected on all axes, so now it's affected by wind. You can have it affected on the Y only. I don't know why there isn't an option for X only. Why is Y the only one you can actually tweak, but not the X? You can decide the minimum Y, so the minimum is going to be 0. And this is the maximum, so let's put the maximum up to 100 or something. You can basically set the limits. If I put this to 0, you can see this part is still. Put the upper part down. It's slowly going to stop moving because the wind is going to be... I guess it's a very sensitive thing because you can see what's going on, right? Or I'm just not getting it well enough. Well, this body is 12 pixels long, and as soon as I go above 12, it starts moving. I don't know. I might be big braining something here. Now, we want to make a new body part on the body. You can click this icon or right click and add element body part. Right arm. We also need to give this a shape, which is going to be block here. Control E to open this thing, and now we want an arm. So I'm gonna... And now be careful, because you want to set the pivot offset of your arm. If you just do this, say, wow, I've got an arm. Oh, cool, let's try to bend it. Woohoo! That is not going to work. What you need to do is set the pivot offset. It's already in the center of the arm. It just needs to be adjusted on the Y-axis. So let's adjust the Y here. Somewhere here. I think this is the center of the arm. And if you put the actual arm up all the way, it's in that center point now. And if you want to bend it right now, you still get funny results because you need to bend the lower part, not the upper one. But yeah, that's it. Now I just mess with the offset, put it to -4, and that works like an arm, except it shouldn't bend both ways axis, and we're gonna fix that right now. We want the arm to be bent in a positive value. If I put it to positive, it's going the other way. So I'm gonna click this invert. So if I go to positive, it's gonna bend forwards. I don't want it to go bend backwards, so the lower range is gonna be 0. So we can only bend from 0 upwards, and I want it to go up to 140. I don't need more than that, so that's it. This is my arm. It's never gonna break. That is the limit. We don't need any of the other two. We don't need custom bend size, nothing. Material, it all works fine here. Press Ctrl plus D to duplicate this. Call it left arm. Put it on the other side. And now all we gotta do is select the shape, open the... but now I'm realizing that we only have one arm texture, so we might have to go to material, actually appearance, mirror texture. That's it. That is why that option is there. Now this guy needs a head, obviously, so let's go to body, add element part, head, heed. There's gonna be a heed, there's gonna be a block, Control E. There we go. Come on. Aye. Obey me. Now again, the pivot offset is on the ground, so the pivot offset here should be 0. This is where you want your head to rotate. Once it is here, you move the body part up. And that's how it works. Also, be sure to have this option ticked on, lock the bent half of parent. If that is turned off and I bend the body, the head isn't going to follow, and that's not okay because heads should always follow your body. Your head is attached to your neck. If it's not, then go see a doctor. Head should be locked to bend half. Now if I bend the body, the head is on its place. That is one healthy boyo. Now as I get to the legs, it's worth mentioning that when I export this model into Mine-imator, the pivot offset is going to be in the center here. If I add the legs, hold on. Now the legs are not parented to the body, so let's add a new part here. Now, if we fixed the rotation point like this is in the center, move the right leg to on the right. This is our rig now. But if I export this into Mine-imator, the center pivot point is going to be here. So, if you're gonna rotate the character, this is where the pivot point is gonna be. In the center of the world, in his crotch, you dirty-minded pervert. If you want your character to have a normal rotation point, just like in Mine-imator so far, select all the body parts by holding shift, raise this guy up, and now the pivot point is going to be in here, just like in Mine-imator by default. I realized we forgot to make the legs bend, so let's do that real quick. Lower, offset. It's going in the positive value, so we don't have to invert it, and the limit is going to be 140 again. And that is now our rig. If you want to save it, open the menu, go to Save Model As. It's recommended you make a folder for your model, Ozai model, and in here, I'm just gonna save this as Ozai. Save. Ozai again. Save. Okay, don't know why I asked me twice. And now I shall launch Mine-imator. If I open up my test project, this is from the last video, make a new model here, call it Ozai, and browse for the model, Ozai. This is what you've made. The name of the model is Ozai, and it's got a body, 2 legs, just like before. Right leg, you can see functions nicely. It looks like a leg, it functions like a leg, the rotation points are all okay. The left leg, exactly identical. Body has got the right rotation point, it bends in all 3 axes with no issue. That is perfect. Right arm as well. It rotates from the correct spot. It bends in the right direction, only goes one way. You see, everything functions. It's basically what I'm trying to say here. And that is the whole magic behind it all. Let's see what else we can explore here. Bendable extrusions. A lot of guys were asking me how I did that. Okay, let's cover it. This is my body. You can add planes and stuff to the body. This is the plane. It's got the texture of this thing. Let's make the plane be, I don't know, a part of the body. This is my plane now. It's got this texture. Planes have a bunch of extra values here. Bend, mirror texture, invert, face camera, hover, extrude. Extrude? That's something new. Well, if you click that plane just became a 3D plane. It's the same as adding a 3D plane, or you can extrude a normal one. This is now a 3D plane. You can also hide the front of it, so you can see the back and everything, or you could hide the back and not the front, or you could just hide both and have this outline here. Or you can hide faces, that's it. I'm gonna name this extrusion, but since it's a shape, you're not gonna see that in Mine-imator. So this extrusion will not appear anywhere. I want the pivot offset to be here. The magnet is gonna be 0.5 because I want to move it by 0.5 to the left. And if I place this here and bend the body, we got some problems here. Position Z on 2. This is the problem. If you want the bendable extrusion to work, it's currently being offset from the center. This is how it's bending. I put it forward by 2 on the Z axis. The body's pivot point is in the center, and this is 2 units away on the Z value. It should be here. If I put it back to 0, you can see it follows the curve of the body perfectly. So So instead of moving it, you should move the pivot offset. Now that I moved the pivot offset, it said, aha, my pivot is still there. So I'm gonna bend from far beyond that point and remain the same. Let me explain that by increasing this number all the way up. You see, it's bending from this very center point. If I put this to 0, it's bending from the point right here, and if I move it away, it's still bending from this point because you moved the entire thing away. The pivot offset, ouch. The pivot offset should be in the same place as the body part's pivot offset. That's important, and that is what most people get wrong. Now, the body and the bendable extrusion work perfectly fine and undisturbed on all 3 bending axes. That is how you do bendable extrusions. It's now a possibility. Sorry, I'm just very excited about this. I've been waiting for this. That was literally my thing. I've made several videos on bendable extrusions already. Okay, we've covered this. We've covered model properties, I guess. Okay, the location after you've saved it is displayed here. You can allow Minecraft skins that I don't know what that does. Model scale. If you have an HD skin, for example, 64 by 64, your model is going to be twice as big. Put the model scale to 0.5 and it scales it down. So when you import that into Mine-imator, it looks normal. It's a scale for the entire model, and it doesn't ruin the bends and stuff. And the textures here, you can scale the texture to get funny results. Hold on, if I go to extrusion and do this, I scale this. Oh yeah, you can scale the UVs this way. Basically, you can see what's going on, right? The UV is being scaled all the way up. That is, if you have some images that don't match with the model, you can scale the entire thing up, and the quality can then be adjusted to match with the model, despite the textures being different. We've got some stuff here. Add body part, add block, plane, we saw this. Select tool, that is basically for selecting stuff. Pivot tool, you can edit pivot offsets that way. You can put the pivot offset right there. Basically, you're moving the pivot offset like you would here. Move tool moves the entire thing, not the pivot offset. Rotate tool, you can rotate this thing. Scale tool, you guessed it, you can scale it on all 3 axes. Wow. Transform tool gives you all the variants of that. Now, I think the final 2 things we haven't covered yet is this panel. You can create a new model. You can create a new model from a template. A template can be an already existing model. So I could save this and use it as a template later on. So if I want to make a new model, I could start with this. You can open a model, you can see the recent models. Oh, Oblivion. Save model as, import model, all those stuff. You have the about to learn about the software here. Special thanks, beta testing, you can donate if you want. Settings, first of all, general, let's see. You can set the preferred frame rate. You can make it back up your models, and of course, you can tweak this as well. It's currently going to back up my models every 2 minutes. Let's raise that up to 5. I haven't touched this setting yet. And the maximum saved backups is going to be 3. So it's going to save up to 3 backups, and then the next one it saves is just going to overwrite one of them. So we have maximum of 3 backups, and they're going to be saved every 5 minutes. Okay. You can turn on slow shape generation. That's going to reduce the lag, but it's going to generate the shape slower. And refresh textures on focus. I don't know what that is, but here it says automatically refresh all model textures when the window is refocused. Good luck. I don't know what that is. We've got controls. You can change the controls just like in Mine-imator. Look sensitivity, how sensitive it's going to be. Turn on smooth camera. So now if I turn my camera around, it's going to have a smooth ease to the end of the motion, just like in Mine-imator. You can change the interface, have it light, dark, darker. I prefer darker. You can change the color of the highlights, so the entire thing is now changing. I'm gonna have it Oblivion blue. You can change the language, of course. You have a bunch of pre-made languages. English, French, and Swedish, I believe. Svenska, yeah, that's Swedish. You can tell the software that Z is up for some reason, because some people prefer it that way. I don't know why. Y is up. Keep it that way. Display shared texture UVs, and what that is you'll best see if I turn it off. If I come in here, you can only see the UV of the arm. If I go here and turn this back on, you can see other body parts and what UVs they've already used. So you can see which parts have already been used up, and that's very useful in my opinion. And this is also pretty interesting. Shape outline opacity. If you raise this up, you're gonna see the outlines of your shapes. You can also put this down to 0. I like to keep mine on 15. And finally, we got graphics. We got blocky bending. That means it's gonna enable blocky bending if you don't have any custom bend size predetermined. Turn on wind, and that is how the wind is gonna be. So when we turned on wind before, those are the settings of the wind that affected the body part. You can turn on or off the SSAO. You can actually see what it does. SSAO stands for screen space ambient occlusion, and basically it makes edges where 2 faces meet darker because less light falls onto those edges. Basically, you can see it in effect right here. It just adds for realism. And of course, lighting. You can turn off the lighting or turn it on. Now, the final thing when you're done with your model, you can preview it under certain lighting circumstances. So let's go do that. And this is pretty much the overworld. You can mess with light rotation, mess with light range. That's just like sunlight range in Mine-imator. Let's raise it up a little bit. And then you can change sceneries. So overworld dusk, overworld night. I actually like this very much. This is the desert, snowy plains. We've got caves, underwater, the end. And I don't think the end is supposed to look like that. That's pretty ugly, not gonna lie. The nether. The nether is also not the best. We've got nether soul sand valley. And this one is epic again. And when you pick something, you can go to render and you can say, I want to render SSAO. I want to render shadows. If you take this off, you're not gonna see shadows. You're not gonna see SSAO. You're not gonna see AA. AA is anti-aliasing. It basically blurs the edges of stuff to make it blend with the image better. And then you get to export. You can export different sizes of the image. Let's go for this one. Export image. Let me save it on my desktop. Ozai. And that is what it looks like. We just made that in Modelbench. Of course, when you're done, you can just save the model once again. That is your model here. And it's gonna function like a model. And I'm pretty sure I've covered every single feature of Modelbench that possibly exists in the newest versions. And I hope you guys understand it now. It is the same software. I have too many Modelbench tutorials. It's all the same. Use your head. Big brain. I'm sorry, I'm still triggered about the English sounding like this. But anyhow, back on track. Jesus, sorry. I hope you guys had fun watching this video and that you presumably learned a thing or two about Modelbench, and it's not gonna be a problem for you to model your own stuff now. I'm sure I do not need to make a tutorial for every single slight variation of things. How to model an arm with 5 fingers. And then I get a comment saying, hey, can you make a tutorial for 4 fingers? Dude, it's the same thing. Just don't add one of the fingers. I mean, it's easy if I explain the mechanics. Now you know how the software works, and now I'm pretty sure you should be able to make your own stuff now based on the knowledge about the software that you have. You don't need me to explain everything. I taught you how to use the software. But still though, I hope you did learn a thing or two and that you had fun. Because I did. I'm not really good at goodbyes. So thanks for watching. Bye.